Cut the engine. Keep your hands where I can see them. We're conducting a search.
A search? I'm in a small boat, man. I'm just trying to chill out here.
We got a tip about drug activity in this area. What's in the bag?
What description?
That's none of your business.
I'm an undercover FBI agent. Let me see your badge, officer.
The 911 call lasted 47 seconds. A woman's voice. Calm. Certain. There's a black male at the Pine Grove boat launch. He looks like he might be dealing drugs from a kayak. The dispatcher asked for clarification. What drugs? What behavior? The caller hesitated. I don't know. I just feel uncomfortable. That discomfort would cost the Gainesville Police Department $6.8 million. It would cost Officer Ryan Caldwell 15 years of his life. And it would expose a pattern of corrupt hiring, racist communications, and Fourth Amendment violations that put the entire department under federal oversight. Special Agent Marcus Devereaux was loading his kayak when Caldwell arrived. 17 years FBI. Former Navy SEAL. 3 major drug organizations dismantled. The very definition of an expert in what drug dealing actually looks like. But to the caller, he was just a black man in a nice area. To Caldwell, he was an easy stop. To the federal jury that convicted them both, they were exactly what the evidence showed them to be. Lake Lanier stretched across 38,000 acres of North Georgia, its blue waters cutting through pine forests and granite outcroppings that had made it one of the most popular recreational destinations in the Southeast. On Saturday mornings, the Pine Grove boat launch filled with fishing boats, jet skis, and families hauling coolers to rented pontoons. It was the kind of place where people came to escape from work, from stress, from everything that weighed on them during the week. For Marcus Devereaux, the escape was literal. 17 years with the FBI, assigned to the Drug Enforcement Task Force in the Atlanta field office, led agent responsible for dismantling 3 major trafficking organizations that had moved cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl through Georgia's interstate corridors. The work required absolute focus. Months undercover, building trust with people who would kill him if they discovered who he really was. Before the Bureau, 8 years as a Navy SEAL, 2 combat tours, Bronze Star for Valor, Navy Commendation Medal, the kind of service record that opened doors and commanded respect in rooms where credentials mattered. Top of his class at Quantico, master's degree from John Jay College, expert in undercover operations and surveillance. One of the most decorated agents in the Southeast region. None of it showed on the shirtless black man paddling a blue kayak across the still morning water. That was the point. Saturday mornings were his. No badge, no operations, no pretending to be someone else. Just the rhythmic stroke of the paddle and the silence of the lake. He had finished his loop by 9 a.m., 3 hours of solitude that kept him sane. By 9:15, he was at the Pine Grove boat launch, lifting his kayak onto the bed of his Ford F-150, securing the straps with the methodical precision that military service had made instinctive. His waterproof dry bag sat on the truck's tailgate. Phone, wallet, car keys, FBI credentials, everything a solo kayaker needed protected from the water. The White family on the dock had been watching him since he paddled in. The husband, the wife, 2 children in life jackets waiting to board a rental pontoon. They hadn't waved, hadn't nodded, just watched. The wife had stepped away for a phone call. Her voice had been too quiet to hear from the boat ramp. Her expression had been tight with something that looked like concern. Devereaux had noticed. 17 years of undercover work had trained him to notice everything. But he had dismissed it. People stared. It wasn't new. It wasn't worth the energy. He was tightening the final strap when the patrol car pulled into the lot. The officer who stepped out was young, mid-20s, uniform crisp with the sheen of recent issue. His badge was in the 9100 series, recent academy graduation. His hand moved to his belt before his feet fully hit the pavement. Devereaux recognized the posture. He had seen it countless times in his career, usually from officers who didn't realize they were about to make a serious mistake. The body cam on the officer's chest activated with a soft beep. The recording had begun. "Sir, step away from the vehicle." Devereaux turned slowly. His hands remained visible, one resting on the kayak strap, the other at his side. 17 years of training had taught him exactly how to manage encounters with law enforcement who had already decided what they were looking at. "Is there a problem, officer? I need you to step away from the truck. Now, I'm loading my kayak. I've been on the water since 6 this morning." The officer closed the distance. His nameplate read Caldwell. His hand remained near his belt, fingers twitching toward equipment he hadn't yet decided to use. We got a report of suspicious activity at this location. Suspicious activity. Devereaux's voice remained level. What kind of suspicious activity involves a kayak? Drug activity. Someone matching your description was seen conducting what appeared to be a transaction from a watercraft. A transaction from a kayak. That's what was reported. Devereaux looked at his kayak, a single-seat recreational model, bright blue, with nothing inside except a paddle and a life jacket. He looked at the boat launch around them. Families loading coolers, fishermen organizing tackle boxes, children running toward the water. Officer, I've been paddling alone for 3 hours. I haven't spoken to anyone. I haven't conducted any transaction. What exactly do I match the description of? Caldwell's jaw tightened. The Bodycam caught the reaction. Black male. Kayak. This area. So the description is black man with a kayak. I didn't say that. You just did. You said the description was black male, kayak, this area. That's not a description of criminal activity. That's a description of my existence. Sir, I'm going to need to see what's in that bag. He pointed to the waterproof dry bag on the tailgate. Standard equipment. Every kayaker on the lake had one. No. Excuse me. You don't have consent to search my belongings. You don't have probable cause. You have an anonymous call about a black man with a kayak, which isn't a crime in any jurisdiction I'm aware of. We received a report of drug activity. Then find the person conducting drug activity. I've been alone on the water, minding my business, exercising my right to enjoy a public lake on a Saturday morning. Caldwell stepped closer. His posture shifted, weight forward, shoulders squared. The Bodycam captured the aggression before he spoke. What's in the bag? Phone, wallet, car keys. Nothing you have any legal right to examine. Why won't you let me look if there's nothing to hide? Because the Fourth Amendment exists. Because I don't have to justify my privacy to an officer who can't articulate probable cause. Because black man with a kayak doesn't meet any standard of reasonable suspicion I've ever encountered. You're being very uncooperative. I'm being appropriately protective of my constitutional rights. There's a difference. Caldwell's hand moved to his radio. He keyed the mic without taking his eyes off Devereaux. Dispatch, this is Unit 47 at Pine Grove Boat Launch. I've got a suspicious individual refusing to cooperate with an investigation. Subject is possibly armed. Requesting backup. Devereaux heard every word. Suspicious. Refusing to cooperate. Possibly armed. None of it was true. All of it was now recorded on Bodycam and dispatch logs. Officer Caldwell. Devereaux's voice carried the calm authority of someone who had conducted hundreds of interrogations. I'm not armed. I'm not suspicious. I'm not refusing to cooperate with a legitimate investigation. I'm refusing to submit to an unconstitutional search based on nothing more than my skin color. We'll see about that. Yes. Devereaux reached slowly for the dry bag, not to open it, but to retrieve his phone. We will. He dialed a number he knew by heart. His supervisor answered on the second ring. Crawford. Supervisory Special Agent Denise Crawford's voice came through the phone clearly. Saturday morning. Her day off too. But she had answered anyway, because agents like Devereaux didn't call on weekends without reason. Denise, it's Mark. I need you to listen and record this call. I'm being detained by a Gainesville PD officer at Lake Lanier. No probable cause. No consent. He's claiming suspicious drug activity based on an anonymous tip about a black man with a kayak. Crawford's tone shifted immediately. Professional. Alert. I'm recording. Go ahead. Devereaux held the phone at his side, speaker volume low but sufficient for the microphone to capture everything. The Bodycam was recording from Caldwell's perspective. Now the FBI was recording from his. Sir, put the phone down. I'm on a call with my supervisor. I don't care who you're talking to. Put it down. Officer, I'm a federal law enforcement agent. This call is being recorded. Everything you say and do from this point forward is being documented by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Caldwell laughed. The Bodycam captured the sound. Dismissive, contemptuous, certain. FBI. Right. And I'm the CIA. My credentials are in that bag. You're welcome to verify them. I'm not verifying anything until you submit to a search. Then we're at an impasse. Because I'm not consenting to an unconstitutional search, and you don't have legal authority to conduct one without consent or probable cause. Innocent people don't refuse searches. That's not how the Fourth Amendment works. Innocent people have the same rights as everyone else. The right to refuse an unreasonable search is fundamental. It's the difference between a free society and a police state. Are you lecturing me? I'm informing you of the law, which you're currently violating. Caldwell stepped forward. His hand closed around Devereaux's arm, fingers digging into muscle, yanking him away from the truck. Turn around. Hands on the vehicle. On what grounds? Failure to comply with a lawful order. You haven't given a lawful order. You've demanded an unconstitutional search, and I've declined. I said turn around. Crawford's voice came through the phone, loud enough for Caldwell to hear. Officer, this is Supervisory Special Agent Denise Crawford, FBI Atlanta Field Office. You are currently detaining a federal agent without probable cause. This call is being recorded. I strongly advise you to de-escalate immediately. Caldwell froze. His grip on Devereaux's arm loosened slightly. Who is that? My supervisor. As I told you, anyone can have someone pretend to be FBI on a phone call. Then verify. My credentials are in the bag. My badge number is SA 7734. Call the Atlanta field office. They'll confirm everything. Caldwell's face had reddened. The Bodycam captured the flush, the look of someone whose certainty was colliding with information he didn't want to process. I'm not calling anyone. Turn around. Now. He spun Devereaux toward the truck, pressed him against the tailgate. The kayak rattled in its straps from the impact. Hands behind your back. You're making a serious mistake. We'll see who's making mistakes. His hands moved across Devereaux's body. A pat-down search conducted without consent, without warrant, without any legal justification. The Bodycam recorded every motion. Crawford listened through the phone that had fallen to the tailgate, but continued recording. Caldwell's hand found the dry bag. He unzipped it without asking, without consent, without authority. His fingers closed around the leather credential case inside. He pulled it out. He opened it. FBI. Special Agent. Marcus Devereaux. The photograph matched the man pressed against the truck. The badge gleamed in the morning sun. Caldwell's face went white. The Bodycam captured every frame. Silence stretched across the boat launch. The families loading their gear had stopped to watch. The fishermen had paused at their trucks. A teenager with a phone had been recording since Caldwell first approached. This is Caldwell's voice cracked. This could be fake. It's not fake. Call the number on the back. They'll verify in 30 seconds. Caldwell didn't call. He stood frozen, the FBI credentials open in his hand, his Bodycam recording his own paralysis. Officer. Devereaux turned slowly, his hands still visible. You just conducted an unconstitutional search of a federal agent. You detained me without probable cause. You ignored my identification. You called for backup with false information. Everything you've done in the last 10 minutes is now evidence in a federal civil rights investigation. I was responding to a call. You were responding to a call about a black man with a kayak. That's not a crime. That's not suspicious activity. That's racism, codified into a 911 report and acted upon by an officer who didn't think twice about why a black man at a lake might warrant police attention. Sirens approached. The backup Caldwell had requested. 2 patrol cars pulled into the lot. Sergeant Linda Williams stepped out of the first, 18 years on the force, a reputation for by-the-book policing. She had responded personally when she heard the dispatch call mention, possibly armed, at a family boat launch. She assessed the scene in 3 seconds. A black man at a truck. A rookie officer holding what appeared to be federal credentials. Bystanders with phones raised. The tension radiating from everyone present. Officer Caldwell. Report. Sergeant, I was conducting a welfare check based on a suspicious activity call. What activity? The caller reported possible drug dealing from a kayak. Williams looked at the kayak strapped to the truck. A single-seat recreational model. Nothing in it but a paddle and a life jacket. Drug dealing from a kayak. That's what was reported. And you found. Caldwell's hand trembled slightly. He held up the credentials. He says he's FBI. Williams took the credential case. She examined it with the thoroughness of someone who had verified federal IDs before. Photograph. Badge number. Issue date. Security features. This is legitimate. It could be. It's legitimate. I've worked joint task forces. I know what FBI credentials look like. She turned to Devereaux. Agent Devereaux, I apologize. Are you injured? No. Do you need medical attention? No. What do you need? I need Officer Caldwell's bodycam footage preserved. I need the dispatch recording secured. I need the 911 call that generated this response archived. And I need to speak with whoever is in charge of your internal affairs division. Crawford's voice came through the phone on the tailgate. Agent Devereaux, FBI units are en route. ETA 15 minutes. I've already contacted Gainesville PD's chief directly. This is now a federal matter. Williams heard it. Her expression shifted. The look of someone watching a catastrophe unfold and knowing exactly what it would cost. Officer Caldwell, return to your vehicle. Do not touch your body cam. Do not speak to anyone. You're relieved of duty pending investigation. Sergeant, I was just following up on a call. You conducted an unconstitutional search of a federal agent, ignored his identification, and called in false information to dispatch. Your involvement in any police activity ends right now. 3 black SUVs pulled into the lot 20 minutes later. FBI badges. Federal authority. The kind of response that signaled how seriously the Bureau took assaults on their own. Caldwell sat alone in his patrol car, watching men in suits photograph his badge, examine his body cam, speak quietly with the agent he had accused of dealing drugs from a kayak. His 9-week career was already over. He just didn't know the sentence yet. The investigation began before Caldwell left the parking lot. FBI Internal Affairs and Gainesville Police Internal Affairs worked in parallel, each uncovering pieces of a pattern that explained everything. The 911 caller was identified within 24 hours. Rebecca Hartley, 43 years old, resident of a lakefront community on the North Shore. She had been at Pine Grove with her family, waiting to board a rental pontoon, when she saw Devereaux paddle in. Her interview was recorded. Why did you call 911? I saw him loading his kayak. He was alone. He didn't look like he belonged there. What made you think he didn't belong? Silence. What made you think he was dealing drugs? I don't know. I just felt uncomfortable. Did you see any drugs? Any transaction? Any behavior that suggested criminal activity? No. Did you see anything illegal at all? No. I felt uncomfortable. 14 similar calls were discovered in her phone records. Black joggers in her neighborhood. Black families at the community pool. Black men fishing on the public pier. 14 calls to police over 2 years, each reporting suspicious activity that turned out to be people existing while black in spaces she had decided weren't meant for them. She was charged with filing a false police report. But the investigation revealed more about Officer Caldwell than about the caller who had triggered the response. Ryan Caldwell had been rejected by 4 police departments before Gainesville hired him. Atlanta PD, Cobb County, DeKalb County, Gwinnett County. Each had documented concerns during background investigations. Each had declined to move forward. Gainesville hired him anyway. Lieutenant Thomas Caldwell, Ryan's father, had shepherded the application through. He had overruled the background concerns. He had dismissed the rejections as departmental politics. He had pushed his son into a uniform despite every warning sign that predicted exactly what happened at Lake Lanier. Digital forensics uncovered the rest. Ryan Caldwell's personal devices contained text messages and social media posts that would have disqualified any properly vetted candidate. Group chats with academy classmates joking about cleaning up nice areas. Comments on news articles celebrating officers in controversial shootings. Private messages discussing which neighborhoods were worth patrolling and which residents needed extra attention. One text, sent 3 weeks before the Devereaux incident, stood out. These people think they can go anywhere now. Someone needs to remind them how things work. His stop records told the same story. 31 civilian contacts in 9 weeks. 26 involved black or Hispanic individuals. 0 arrests. 0 citations. Just stops. Demands for ID. Questions about what people were doing in places where Caldwell had decided they didn't belong. Lake Lanier. A public lake. State property. Open to every citizen regardless of race. And in 9 weeks, Caldwell had stopped 11 black visitors at various access points, each time claiming suspicious activity, each time finding nothing. The FBI presented its findings to a federal grand jury 8 weeks after the incident. The indictment was comprehensive. Civil rights violations under color of law, assault on a federal officer, filing false reports, unlawful detention, conducting unconstitutional searches. Lieutenant Thomas Caldwell was suspended pending investigation into corrupt hiring practices. The background investigator who had signed off on Ryan's application was terminated. The chain of approvals that had allowed him onto the force was documented as evidence of systemic failure. Agent Devereaux provided testimony over 2 days. He walked through every moment of the encounter with the precision that had made him one of the Bureau's most effective interrogators. When asked how he had remained calm while being illegally detained, his answer made headlines. "I've spent 17 years catching drug dealers. Real ones. I know what they look like, how they operate, what behaviors indicate criminal activity." Officer Caldwell saw none of those things. He saw black skin and decided that was enough. It wasn't. The federal courtroom in Atlanta was filled to capacity. The case had drawn national attention. An FBI agent accused of dealing drugs from a kayak by a rookie officer who couldn't imagine that a black man might simply be enjoying a Saturday morning on the water. The prosecution's strategy was straightforward. Let the evidence speak. The Bodycam footage was played first. 11 minutes of continuous recording. The jury watched Caldwell approach. They watched him demand a search. They watched him dismiss every explanation. They watched him laugh at the mention of FBI. They watched him find the credentials and go silent. Then they played Crawford's phone recording. The same encounter from Devereaux's perspective, including everything said before Caldwell's Bodycam began buffering properly. "We got a report of drug activity in this area, and you fit the description." "What description?" "A black man with a kayak." "That's none of your business." The prosecutor paused the audio at that moment. None of your business. A citizen asks what crime he's suspected of, and Officer Caldwell tells him it's none of his business. That's not law enforcement. That's harassment. That's racial profiling. That's exactly what the Fourth Amendment was written to prevent. The 911 call was played next. The jury listened to Rebecca Hartley explain her discomfort. They heard the dispatcher ask for details. They heard the admission that there was no drug activity, no transaction, no criminal behavior, just a feeling. This call is what triggered the response. The prosecutor continued. A feeling of discomfort from a woman who had made 14 similar calls over 2 years. 14 times she saw a black person in a space she considered hers, and 14 times she called police to remove them. Officer Caldwell was the weapon she used that day, and he was more than willing to be used. The pattern evidence was displayed on screens. 31 stops, 26 minorities, 0 arrests. Text messages joking about, reminding people how things work. Social media posts celebrating aggressive policing. Devereaux testified on the 4th day. He wore a Navy suit, the same attire he wore when testifying in the federal cases he had built over 17 years. "I've spent my career identifying drug dealers," he told the jury. "I've worked undercover operations where a single mistake could cost my life. I know what suspicious activity looks like. What I was doing at Lake Lanier wasn't suspicious. It was recreation. The only reason Officer Caldwell stopped me was the color of my skin." The defense attempted the only strategy available, honest mistake based on a legitimate call. The caller had reported drug activity. Caldwell had responded. Mistakes were made. The prosecutor's rebuttal was surgical. The call reported a feeling, not a crime. Officer Caldwell knew that when he demanded a search. He knew it when he ignored identification. He knew it when he laughed at federal credentials. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice to treat a black man as a criminal because Officer Caldwell couldn't imagine any other possibility. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. Guilty on all counts. Caldwell stood motionless as the verdicts were read. His father, suspended, awaiting his own termination hearing, sat in the gallery, head bowed. The judge scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later. The defendant has demonstrated a pattern of conduct that betrays every principle of law enforcement. He used his badge to harass citizens based on race. He did so to a federal agent, while that agent's supervisor listened on the phone, after ignoring every opportunity to verify the truth. The consequences will be severe. Sentencing drew the largest crowd of any proceeding in the case. The judge reviewed the pre-sentencing report with visible contempt. The failed background checks, the father's corrupt influence, the text messages, the stop records, the pattern visible to anyone who looked. Officer Caldwell, you had 9 weeks to learn what it means to wear a badge. Instead, you spent those 9 weeks demonstrating exactly why 4 departments rejected you. You targeted minorities. You conducted unconstitutional searches. You joked with your friends about reminding people how things work. She paused. And when you encountered Agent Devereaux, a man who has spent 17 years risking his life to protect this country, you saw only his skin color. You accused him of dealing drugs from a kayak. You laughed when he identified himself. You searched his belongings without consent or cause. The courtroom was silent. 15 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole. Crimes against federal agents carry enhanced sentences for a reason. The law enforcement community depends on mutual respect and recognition. You violated that principle in the most fundamental way possible. Lieutenant Thomas Caldwell was terminated the following week. His 24-year career ended in disgrace. His pension was revoked. 3 supervisors who had approved Ryan's application were demoted and transferred. The police chief resigned before he could be forced out. The department entered a DOJ consent decree requiring federal oversight for 5 years. Rebecca Hartley, the 911 caller, pleaded guilty to filing a false police report. She received 18 months probation and mandatory community service with civil rights organizations. Her pattern of calls was cited in the sentencing memorandum as evidence of systematic weaponization of law enforcement against black citizens. The city settled with Agent Devereaux for $6.8 million within 4 months. He kept $4.8 million for his family, college funds for his 2 sons, security for their future. The remaining $2 million established the Devereaux Youth Outdoor Foundation, providing kayaking, camping, and wilderness programs to inner-city children in Atlanta. Every child deserves to experience what I experienced on that lake, he said in the statement announcing the foundation. Not the harassment, the peace, the freedom, the right to exist in nature without someone deciding you don't belong. Ryan Caldwell is currently incarcerated at Federal Correctional Institution Jessup in Georgia. He will be eligible for release in 2039. His appeals have been denied twice. His father visits monthly. His former colleagues do not. Agent Marcus Devereaux was promoted to Supervisory Special Agent 6 months after the incident. He now oversees the same drug enforcement task force he once served on, managing undercover operations across the Southeast region. He still kayaks every Saturday morning. Same lake, same boat launch, same routine he had followed for years before a 911 caller decided he didn't belong. The families at Pine Grove recognize him now. They wave. They nod. They ask about his sons. The crossing guard at the entrance knows his truck by sight. He paddles the same routes, writes nothing in particular in his mind, and returns to shore refreshed, the peace that the water has always provided, undisturbed by the officer who tried to take it from him. His waterproof bag still sits on the tailgate when he loads his kayak. Phone, wallet, keys, FBI credentials. The badge is the same one Caldwell found that morning. It carries no additional marks, no commemorative engravings, no physical reminder of what happened. It doesn't need one. The lake remembers. The foundation carries his name. And every Saturday, Marcus Devereaux proves that the water was never the problem. The problem was an officer who couldn't imagine a black man belonging there. That officer is gone now. The lake remains.
Ma'am, step away from the vehicle and let me see some ID.
Why the hell should I give you ID in my driveway?
Your driveway? In this neighborhood? I don't think so.
Excuse me? My family's been in Chicago for 5 generations.
Why don't you get the hell from here and stop causing problems?
Margaret Hollis had called 911 47 times in 5 years. Every call reported suspicious activity. Every call targeted black or Hispanic neighbors. Every call was unfounded. Dr. Camille Thornton was call number 48, a black woman breaking into the Thornton house. Except Dr. Thornton was the owner, carrying groceries in her own driveway with her 11-year-old daughter. Officer Ryan Kowalski responded with 13 weeks of training and a lifetime of assumptions. He demanded her papers. He asked if she was allowed to be in this country. When she explained her family had been in Chicago since 1918, great-great-grandfather from the stockyards, grandfather a Tuskegee airman, father a firefighter for 32 years, he told her to go back to your country and stop causing problems. Her daughter screamed when he grabbed her mother's wrist. Her security cameras captured everything. 47 calls. 1 jury verdict. $19.7 million. The Lincoln Park brownstone had been Dr. Thornton's dream since medical school. Red brick, black shutters. 3 stories of Chicago history in a neighborhood where homes sold for what most people earned in a lifetime. she had saved for years. 14 years of medical practice at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, one of the nation's busiest trauma centers. 8 years of military service before that. 2 deployments to Iraq. 1 to Afghanistan. A Bronze Star earned treating wounded soldiers under enemy fire at a forward operating base while rockets exploded around her. Dr. Camille Thornton, 42 years old. Board-certified emergency medicine physician and trauma surgeon. Former U.S. Army captain. Born on the south side of Chicago. Her family had lived in the city for 5 generations. Great-great-grandfather arriving in 1918 during the Great Migration, working the stockyards that built Chicago's meatpacking industry. His son had become a Tuskegee Airman, fighting for America in World War II. His grandson had served 32 years as a Chicago firefighter. The Thorntons were Chicago. Always had been. This Saturday afternoon, she had finished a brutal 48-hour trauma shift, the kind that left surgeons questioning whether they had anything left to give. Then she had picked up her daughter Zoe from soccer practice, listening to the 11-year-old describe her game-winning goal with the enthusiasm that made everything worthwhile. They were laughing as they pulled into the driveway. Mother and daughter. Groceries in the trunk. Home waiting. The woman watching from 3 doors down didn't see any of that. Margaret Hollis was 68 years old. She had lived in Lincoln Park for 40 years. She had watched the neighborhood change. She had opinions about those changes. And she had a phone. She dialed 911 at 3:33 p.m. There's a black woman I don't recognize breaking into the Thornton house on Fullerton. She's got a child with her. They're taking things out of a car. The dispatcher asked for clarification. I don't know her. I've never seen her before. She doesn't belong here. Hollis had lived 3 doors down from the Thorntons for 3 years. She had seen Dr. Thornton dozens of times. She had called police on her twice before, both times unfounded. She had chosen not to recognize her. Officer Ryan Kowalski was dispatched at 3:34 p.m. 13 weeks on the force. Recent academy graduate. Eager to prove himself on calls that more experienced officers would have resolved in 30 seconds. Dr. Thornton was lifting grocery bags from the trunk when the patrol car pulled up. Zoe was already carrying 2 bags toward the front door, soccer uniform still on under her jacket. The residential security camera mounted near the entrance captured everything. Wide angle, clear daylight, no shadows. Timestamp, 15 hours, 35 minutes, and 22 seconds. A young officer stepped out of the cruiser. His hand moved to his belt before his feet hit the pavement. His Bodycam activated with a soft beep. Ma'am, step away from the vehicle. Let me see some ID. Dr. Thornton turned. Grocery bag in hand. Northwestern Medicine hoodie identifying exactly where she worked. This is my car. Why the hell should I give you ID in my driveway? Kowalski's Bodycam synced with the residential security camera, 2 angles on the same encounter, neither leaving room for ambiguity. Your driveway. His tone carried skepticism that both cameras captured clearly. In this neighborhood? I don't think so. Dr. Thornton set the grocery bag on the trunk's edge. Her posture shifted, the controlled response of someone who had managed crisis situations in combat zones and trauma base. Excuse me. I said I don't think so. This is a nice area. Expensive homes. I'm aware. I bought one. You bought a house here. 3 years ago. After saving for a decade. Is there something I can help you with, officer? Zoe had stopped near the front steps, grocery bag still in her hands. She watched the exchange with an expression that shifted from confusion to fear. We got a call about a break-in at this address. A break-in. Dr. Thornton gestured to her hoodie, to the Range Rover, to the open trunk filled with grocery bags. Does this look like a break-in to you? I need to verify you're supposed to be here. Where are you from? Chicago. Originally. Born at Northwestern Memorial. The same hospital where I now work as a trauma surgeon. Where are you really from? The question landed in the afternoon air. The security camera recorded Dr. Thornton's expression, the moment confusion gave way to recognition of exactly what was happening. I'm really from Chicago. The South Side. My family has been here for 5 generations. Sure they have. Kowalski stepped closer. His hand remained near his belt. I need to see some papers. Proof you're allowed to be in this country. Papers. Dr. Thornton's voice carried the controlled fury of a woman who had treated wounded soldiers while rockets exploded around her. I'm an American citizen. 4th-generation Chicagoan. I don't carry papers to prove my citizenship in my own driveway. That's what they all say. What they all say? Who is they? If you can't prove you belong here. My great-great-grandfather came to Chicago in 1918. He worked the stockyards. My grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman in World War II. My father was a Chicago firefighter for 32 years. I served 8 years in the U.S. Army, including 2 combat deployments. I earned a Bronze Star treating wounded soldiers under enemy fire. She gestured to the brownstone behind her. This is my home. This is my neighborhood. This is my country. Kowalski's face flushed. The bodycam captured it. The reaction of someone whose assumptions were being challenged by facts. His response came with a sneer that both cameras documented clearly. Why don't you go back to your country and stop causing problems? The words hung in the afternoon air. Security camera. Bodycam. Every syllable preserved. Go back to my country? I was born 3 miles from here. We don't need your kind here. My kind. My grandfather flew planes to defeat Nazis while America wouldn't serve him at lunch counters. My father pulled bodies from burning buildings for 32 years. What exactly is my kind? You know what I mean. I want you to say it clearly. For the cameras. What cameras? Dr. Thornton pointed to her security system. To his body cam. To the neighbor across the street who had emerged onto his porch with his phone raised. All of them. Kowalski turned. Saw the neighbor recording. Saw the cameras he hadn't noticed. His hand moved toward Dr. Thornton's phone as she reached for it. What happened next would be captured from 3 angles. Kowalski moved before she could activate the recording. His hand closed around her wrist, aggressive, twisting, and yanked the phone from her grip. The device hit the driveway and cracked against the concrete. The screen shattered. The case split. Zoe screamed. "Mom. Stay back, baby. Stay back. You just destroyed my property." Dr. Thornton's voice remained controlled despite the pain in her wrist. "That's assault and destruction of evidence. You were making a threatening movement." I was opening my camera app. The security camera captured everything. The grab, the twist, the phone shattering. Kowalski's body cam showed the moment from his perspective, his hand entering the frame, the device falling. The neighbor, David Morrison, retired architect, 15 years in the neighborhood, shouted from his porch while recording. "That's Dr. Thornton. She lives here. What are you doing?" Kowalski ignored him. "Turn around. Hands on the vehicle. I've done nothing wrong." I said turn around. He grabbed her arm, the same wrist he had twisted, and spun her toward the Range Rover. Her hip struck the bumper. Her palms hit the trunk. Zoe ran toward them, tears streaming. "Stop. Stop hurting my mom. Stay back, kid. That's my daughter." Dr. Thornton's voice carried through gritted teeth. "She's 11 years old. She's watching you assault her mother in her own driveway. She's watching her mother resist a lawful order. There's nothing lawful about this. I'm a trauma surgeon. I served 2 tours in Iraq. I have a Bronze Star. I've saved more lives than you'll ever know. Then go back to your country and be a hero there." Morrison was already dialing. 911. "I need a supervisor at 2847 Fullerton immediately. One of your officers is assaulting a woman in her own driveway. Her daughter is watching. The woman is Dr. Thornton. She's a surgeon at Northwestern. She owns the house. This needs to stop right now." Kowalski's search found nothing. No weapons. No contraband. No evidence of any crime. He released her arms. "You can go. I can go into my own house." Dr. Thornton turned slowly, rubbing her wrist where his grip had left red marks. "You assault me, destroy my phone, traumatize my daughter, and now I can go. Ma'am, my name is Dr. Thornton. You can address me properly. This was a misunderstanding. This was racial profiling. You demanded my papers. You told me to go back to my country. You assaulted me in front of my child. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a federal civil rights violation." Sirens approached. The supervisor Morrison had demanded, "Let me explain something to you." Dr. Thornton picked up her shattered phone from the driveway. "I've performed surgery on soldiers while mortars landed 50 feet away. I don't panic. I don't lose composure. That's what makes me good at my job." She looked at Zoe, sobbing on the front steps. "But my 11-year-old daughter just watched a police officer assault me for carrying groceries. She's going to have nightmares about this. She's going to wonder if she's safe in her own home." She turned back to Kowalski. "And you're going to answer for that." The supervisor's vehicle stopped at the curb. The door opened. Sergeant Patricia Okonkwo stepped out. 22 years on the force. She assessed the scene in seconds. The woman in the Northwestern hoodie, the sobbing child, The neighbor with his phone raised, the rookie officer standing alone. What's happening here? Sergeant, I responded to a burglary call. Officer, I'm asking her. Okonkwo turned to Dr. Thornton. Her posture conveyed respect, the approach of someone who understood how to de-escalate. Ma'am, can you tell me what happened? Dr. Thornton's voice carried the precision of someone accustomed to delivering facts under pressure. I'm Dr. Camille Thornton. This is my home. I was unloading groceries with my daughter when your officer demanded to see my papers and asked if I was allowed to be in this country. When I explained I was born in Chicago, he told me to go back to my country. When I tried to record the interaction, he grabbed my wrist, destroyed my phone, and forced me against my own vehicle. Okonkwo looked at Kowalski, at his body cam, at the security camera mounted on the brownstone. Is that accurate? Sergeant, she was being uncooperative. Is what she said accurate? Silence. Your body cam recorded this entire encounter. Her security system recorded it. The neighbor across the street recorded it. Is what she said accurate? Kowalski didn't answer. Ma'am, do you have identification confirming your residence? Inside. I'll get it. Dr. Thornton walked into her own home for the first time since arriving. She returned with 3 items. Driver's license showing her address. Hospital badge showing her name. Military ID showing her rank and service. Okonkwo examined each one. Her expression darkened with every document. U.S. Army Captain. Combat deployments. Bronze Star. For treating wounded soldiers under enemy fire at a forward operating base in Afghanistan. Okonkwo turned to Kowalski. Her voice carried something beyond anger. The contempt of someone watching a colleague disgrace the badge. You just told an Army veteran and trauma surgeon to go back to her country. In Chicago, where she was born, where her family has lived for over 100 years. Sergeant, I didn't know. You didn't ask. You assumed. You saw a black woman in a nice neighborhood and decided she didn't belong. You demanded her papers. You told her to leave her own country. She extended her hand. Your badge. Your weapon. Now, Sergeant, you're relieved of duty effective immediately. Internal Affairs will contact you. Hand them over. Kowalski's hands trembled as he unclipped his badge. The weapon followed, surrendered on a quiet street in Lincoln Park, while 3 cameras recorded. Okonkwo took both without ceremony. Wait in my vehicle. Do not speak. Kowalski walked away. His 13-week career had ended in a driveway. Okonkwo turned back to Dr. Thornton. Doctor, I cannot adequately express how sorry I am. This violates everything we're supposed to stand for. Do you know who called this in? The 9/11 recording will be part of the investigation. Her name is Margaret Hollis. 3 doors down. She's called police on me before, twice in 3 years. Both times unfounded. We'll examine her entire call history. You'll find a pattern. Dr. Thornton walked to the front steps, where Zoe sat crying. She gathered her daughter in her arms. It's okay, baby. It's over. Why did he hurt you? Because he saw what he expected to see, not what was actually there. But you're a doctor. You help people. I know, baby. Are we safe here? Dr. Thornton looked at her brownstone, the home she had dreamed of, the neighborhood she had earned. This is our home. Nobody is going to make us feel like we don't belong. She looked at Okonkwo. I want copies of all footage. And I want the name of the best civil rights attorney in Chicago. The bodycam footage was in FBI hands within 48 hours. The residential security camera provided a second angle. Morrison's phone added a third. The 911 call completed the picture. All 4 recordings went viral within days. 70 million views across platforms. The phrase, "go back to your country," became a hashtag. The image of a trauma surgeon in a Northwestern hoodie being forced against her Range Rover became the defining visual of racial profiling for months. But the footage only told part of the story. The investigation revealed the rest. Officer Ryan Kowalski had been rejected twice by Chicago PD before being hired during a staffing shortage. Both rejections cited concerns about cultural sensitivity and implicit bias indicators. When manpower reached critical levels, those concerns were waived. His social media accounts contained posts that would have disqualified any properly vetted candidate. Anti-immigrant rhetoric shared without comment. Comments celebrating deportations. Memes mocking diversity hires and anchor babies. One post, made 6 months before the Thornton incident. Real Americans are getting replaced in their own neighborhoods. Someone needs to remind these people who this country belongs to. His stop records showed the pattern. 24 civilian contacts in 13 weeks. 20 involved Black or Hispanic individuals. 0 arrests. 0 citations. Just stops. Demands for ID. Questions about citizenship. Systematic harassment of people who had committed no crime. Margaret Hollis's 911 history revealed something worse. 47 calls over 5 years. Every call reported suspicious activity. Every call targeted Black or Hispanic neighbors. Every call was unfounded. A Black family moving in, possible burglary in progress. A Hispanic landscaping crew, unauthorized workers. A Black teenager waiting for a bus, suspicious person casing houses. 47 calls. 47 times dispatch had responded. 47 times officers had questioned people whose only crime was existing while non-white in Margaret Hollis's field of vision. The pattern had been documented in dispatch records for years. No one had connected the dots until now. Northwestern Memorial Hospital issued a statement within 72 hours. Full support for Dr. Thornton. Pride in their colleagues' service record. Condemnation of the officer's conduct. The U.S. Army Veterans Association issued its own statement, deploring the treatment of a decorated combat veteran, demanding accountability. Dr. Thornton's 89-year-old grandfather gave an interview to local news. James Thornton Sr., Tuskegee Airman, one of the last surviving members of the legendary unit. I flew bombers over Germany to defeat fascism. I came home to a country that wouldn't let me eat at white lunch counters. I thought we had moved past that. Watching what happened to my granddaughter, in her own driveway, in front of her child, I realized we haven't moved as far as I hoped. Federal charges were filed within 6 weeks. Civil rights violations under color of law. Assault. Deprivation of rights. Margaret Hollis faced her own charges. Filing false police reports. Conspiracy to deprive civil rights. 47 documented instances of weaponizing law enforcement. The civil lawsuit followed. Dr. Thornton versus Kowalski, Hollis, and City of Chicago. Federal Court. Northern District of Illinois. The complaint was 63 pages long. The federal courtroom filled to capacity every day. Doctors in white coats beside veterans in dress uniforms. Communities united in outrage over what had been done to one of their own. Dr. Thornton testified in her Army dress uniform. The Bronze Star pinned to her chest. Combat Action ribbon among her decorations. 14 years of medical service and 8 years of military service made visible. I've treated gunshot wounds while rockets exploded 50 feet away. I've performed surgery on soldiers who would have died without immediate intervention. None of that mattered to Officer Kowalski. He saw a Black woman and decided I didn't belong in my own driveway, in my own neighborhood, in my own country. Her grandfather took the stand next. James Thornton Sr., 89 years old, wearing his Tuskegee Airman jacket. I was 19 when I enlisted. Black men weren't supposed to fly planes. That's what they told us. We proved them wrong over the skies of Europe. His voice cracked. I thought things had changed. Then I watched a video of my granddaughter, a doctor, a veteran, a mother, being told to go back to her country. In Chicago, where our family has lived for over 100 years. Zoe testified via video link. Appearing in court would have been too traumatic. I have nightmares. About police coming to our house. About someone hurting my mom. I used to feel safe in our driveway. Now I don't. Margaret Hollis was called as a hostile witness. Her 911 records displayed on screens. 47 calls. Every one targeting minorities. Every one unfounded. Why did you call police on Dr. Thornton? I didn't recognize her. She's lived 3 doors down for 3 years. You've called police on her twice before. Silence. You've called police 47 times in 5 years. Every call targeted Black or Hispanic neighbors. Not one resulted in charges. Can you explain that pattern? I was concerned about neighborhood safety. Whose safety, Ms. Hollis? Kowalski's attorney attempted the standard defense. Misunderstanding. Good faith. Inadequate training. The prosecutor played the bodycam footage. Go back to your country and stop causing problems. Does that sound like a misunderstanding? Does that sound like good faith? Officer Kowalski didn't misunderstand anything. He understood exactly who Dr. Thornton was. He just didn't care. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Liable on all counts. Kowalski, Hollis, and the City of Chicago. Compensatory damages, $7.7 million. Punitive damages, $12 million. Total, $19.7 million. The largest civil rights verdict against Chicago PD in a decade. The criminal case concluded weeks later. Kowalski, guilty on all federal charges. 4 years prison. Margaret Hollis, guilty of filing false reports. 2 years probation. 800 hours community service. The message was clear. The police superintendent addressed the department's failures publicly. New vetting protocols. Enhanced bias training. Civilian oversight of hiring. The systems that should have prevented Kowalski from ever wearing a badge. Dr. Thornton accepted the settlement with purpose. $5 million established the Chicago Roots Foundation, providing legal support for citizens wrongly accused based on race. The foundation's mission, ensuring no one would face what she faced alone. $2 million went to veteran support organizations, resources for those who served when they returned to a country that didn't always welcome them home. The remaining funds secured her family's future. College savings for Zoe. Security for generations to come. The brownstone on Fullerton now bears a plaque near the entrance. Small. Dignified. A statement of fact. The Thornton family, Chicago since 1918. Dr. Thornton was promoted to Chief of Emergency Medicine at Northwestern Memorial 6 months after the trial. She oversees the department where she spent 14 years saving lives, leading the team that handles every trauma, every cardiac arrest, every emergency. She speaks at medical conferences about composure under pressure. She tells the story of the driveway. Composure isn't about not feeling anger. It's about channeling anger into action. I felt rage that day. I also knew that my rage, properly documented, would become justice. Ryan Kowalski is serving his sentence at FCI Pekin in Illinois. He will be eligible for release in 3 years. His applications for appeal have been denied. Margaret Hollis completed her probation. She sold her Lincoln Park home and moved away. Her neighbors did not attend the farewell. Zoe Thornton is 13 now. The nightmares have faded. Therapy helped. She wants to be a doctor like her mother, so I can help people instead of hurting them. James Thornton Sr. passed away 8 months after the trial. 90 years old. One of the last Tuskegee Airmen. He lived long enough to see justice for his granddaughter. His obituary mentioned the trial, how he had testified about fighting for America and watching his family still fight for belonging. The Chicago Roots Foundation has assisted 247 cases in its first 2 years. Citizens wrongly accused. Families traumatized by encounters that never should have happened. Each one receiving the legal support that made the difference between silence and accountability. Every Saturday morning, Dr. Thornton and Zoe walk through their Lincoln Park neighborhood, past the homes of neighbors who testified for them, past the spot where Morrison stood with his phone, past the driveway where it all happened. They walk with their heads high, because this is their neighborhood, their city, their country. 5 generations of Thorntons. Stockyards. Tuskegee. Firehouses. Operating rooms. Combat zones. The officer who told her to leave is in a federal prison cell. The neighbor who called 911 47 times lost her home and her reputation. The city that failed to protect her paid $19.7 million to ensure it never happens again. And Dr. Camille Thornton still saves lives every day. Still teaches residents how to stay calm when everything is chaos. Still proves that the measure of a person isn't where they came from. It's what they do when the world tries to tell them they don't belong. One driveway, one officer, one verdict, and a family that will be Chicago forever.
Staff Sergeant, United States Marine Corps. Isn't that obvious?
The problem is this car doesn't match someone like you.
Someone like me?
I don't care if you served on the moon. Step out of the vehicle. I'm searching this car.
I fought for this country. Bled for it.
And you're gonna...
Kyle Brixton had lasted 3 weeks in Marine Corps boot camp before washing out. Couldn't handle the discipline. Couldn't handle being told what to do by drill instructors who demanded excellence. Couldn't handle the standards that separated Marines from everyone else. 16 weeks later, he was wearing a police badge, pulling over a black man in a BMW, and facing the exact kind of Marine who had broken him. A senior drill instructor with a Bronze Star, a Purple Heart, and 13 years of distinguished service. Staff Sergeant Darnell Washington had just served as pallbearer at a military funeral. He was wearing his dress blues. His medals were visible through the window. None of it mattered to an officer who had spent 16 weeks targeting black drivers and texting friends about teaching jarheads their place. Brixton threw a fallen Marine's memorial flag on the ground during his search. A retired sergeant major arrived as backup and ordered him to surrender his badge on the spot. 9 years federal prison. 3 weeks of boot camp couldn't make him a Marine. 16 weeks with a badge made him a felon. Arlington National Cemetery stretched across 639 acres of hallowed ground. Row upon row of white headstones. The final rest of those who had given everything. Corporal James "Jimmy" Reeves was laid to rest on a Wednesday afternoon. Full military honors. The Marine Corps Silent Drill Platoon. A 21-gun salute that echoed across the hills. Taps played by a lone bugler, the notes hanging in the cold December air. Staff Sergeant Darnell Washington stood at attention as one of 6 pallbearers. His dress blues were immaculate, ribbons stacked across his chest, medals gleaming in the winter sun. Bronze Star with Valor, Purple Heart, Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal, Combat Action Ribbon. 13 years of service displayed for the world to see. He had trained Jimmy Reeves, watched a nervous recruit from Ohio become a warrior, pushed him through the crucible, through the pain, through every moment that separated Marines from civilians. Jimmy had become one of the best. Then Afghanistan took him. IED, Helmand Province, the same region where Washington had earned his Bronze Star, where he had carried 2 wounded Marines to safety under enemy fire, where shrapnel had torn into his left shoulder and earned him the Purple Heart. The flag was folded with precision, 13 folds, each with meaning. It was presented to Jimmy's mother, a woman from Cleveland who had raised her son alone, who had watched him become something greater than either of them had imagined. Washington was tasked with delivering a second flag to her home after the service. A personal request from the family. A final honor. He placed the folded triangle on the passenger seat of his BMW X6 and began the drive home. His wife Keisha was expecting him for dinner. His 6-year-old son Darnell Jr. was waiting to see Daddy. The shortcut through Willow Creek saved 20 minutes. An affluent neighborhood he had never driven through. Large homes, manicured lawns, tree-lined streets. The kind of place he could afford now, after 13 years of service, after saving every deployment bonus, after building the life his childhood in Baltimore had never promised. He had grown up in poverty, enlisted at 18 to escape, to build something better. First in his family, to own a home. The BMW was his reward. Years of sacrifice made tangible. The patrol car appeared in his rearview mirror at 4:43 p.m. Washington noticed immediately. 13 years of situational awareness. The cruiser had been parked on a side street, pulled out when he passed, followed at distance for 3 blocks. He checked his speed. 32 in a 35 zone. He verified his turn signal. Everything in order. The lights activated anyway. Washington pulled to the curb with the discipline of a man who had survived 3 combat deployments. He lowered his window fully. He placed both hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2. Visible. Controlled. Exactly as he trained his recruits to handle high-stress situations. The officer who approached was young. White. Mid-20s. Uniform crisp. Badge number visible. 8847. His hand was already on his belt. The Axon Body 2 on Brixton's chest activated as he approached. Timestamp. 16 hours, 47 minutes, and 33 seconds. The lens captured Washington through the fully lowered window, dress blues filling the frame, ribbons and medals displayed across his chest, Bronze Star gleaming in the afternoon light. License and registration. Washington's hands remained on the steering wheel. His voice was measured. Calm. May I ask why I'm being stopped, officer? Failure to signal back there. License and registration. I signaled. Every turn. I didn't see it. License and registration. Washington reached slowly toward his jacket pocket, keeping his movements visible. He produced his military ID first, standard practice for service members, then his driver's license. Brixton took the documents. His eyes moved from the ID to Washington's face, then to the BMW's interior, then back to Washington. You want to tell me how you can afford a car like this? The question landed in the afternoon air. The Bodycam recorded it with perfect clarity. I'm a staff sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. Washington's voice remained level. Isn't that obvious? He gestured toward his uniform. The dress blues that announced exactly who he was. The ribbons that documented 13 years of service. The medals that represented combat, valor, sacrifice. Brixton's expression didn't change. Registration. Washington reached toward the glove compartment, slowly, deliberately, hands visible at all times. He produced the registration. His name. His address. The BMW's VIN matching the plates. Brixton examined the documents. Everything matched. Everything confirmed exactly what Washington had told him. He handed the documents back. Then he stepped away from the window and began circling the vehicle. The body cam captured his movement, around the front bumper, along the passenger's side, examining the BMW, as if searching for something that would justify what he had already decided. The problem is this car doesn't match someone like you. Washington's jaw tightened. The body cam captured the micro-expression, controlled anger held in check by years of discipline. Someone like me? Yeah, someone like you. What does that mean exactly? Brixton completed his circuit and returned to the driver's window. His posture had shifted, weight forward, hand near his belt. It means I've seen this before. Nice cars in neighborhoods like this, driven by people who can't explain where the money came from. I can explain exactly where the money came from. 13 years of military service. 3 combat deployments. Hazard pay. Deployment bonuses. Saving instead of spending. That's what they all say. They all say they're staff sergeants with bronze stars. I don't know what those ribbons mean. Could be fake. Washington looked at Brixton with an expression that had made recruits reconsider their life choices. The stare of a senior drill instructor who had shaped 1,500 Marines. These ribbons represent combat tours you couldn't imagine. This medal, he touched the Bronze Star, was awarded for carrying 2 wounded Marines to safety under enemy fire while bleeding from shrapnel wounds. This uniform represents 13 years of service to a country that's supposed to treat its veterans better than this. Step out of the vehicle. On what grounds? I'm conducting an investigation. Into what? A Marine driving home from a funeral? Into how someone like you affords a car like this in a neighborhood like this. Washington's phone sat in the center console. Without taking his eyes off Brixton, he pressed a contact on the screen. Keisha answered on the second ring. Hey baby, you close? I've been pulled over. Willow Creek. I need you to listen to everything and don't hang up. A neighbor had emerged onto his porch across the street. Phone in hand. Recording. Put the phone down. Washington kept it in the center console, speaker active, Keisha listening to every word. My wife is on the line. She's documenting this encounter. I don't care who's on the line. Put it down. The phone stays where it is. What's your probable cause for detaining me? Your attitude is my probable cause. That's not how the Fourth Amendment works. Brixton's face flushed. The body cam captured it. The same reaction that had preceded every escalation documented in his short career. Step out of the vehicle. I'm searching this car. I don't consent to a search. I don't need your consent if I have reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion of what? I'm a Marine in dress blues driving home from a military funeral. What exactly raises your suspicion? Brixton leaned closer to the window. His voice dropped, the tone of someone who believed he held all the power. I don't care if you served on the moon. Step out of the vehicle. I'm searching this car. Washington's response carried the weight of everything he had endured. Combat. Deployment. Carrying wounded brothers through enemy fire. The funeral he had just attended. I've fought for this country. Bled for it. And you're going to disrespect my uniform over a traffic stop? Last warning. That flag on my passenger seat is for a Marine's mother. A Marine I trained. A Marine who died serving the country you claim to protect. You want to search around that? Brixton keyed his radio. The body cam recorded the transmission. Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I've got a hostile driver refusing to cooperate with a lawful search. Requesting backup at my location. Washington heard every word. So did Keisha on the phone. So did the neighbor on the porch, still recording. Hostile. Washington's voice remained controlled, but the anger beneath it was unmistakable. I've answered every question. I've provided every document. I've explained exactly who I am and where I came from. What's hostile about that? Your attitude. My attitude is disciplined. My attitude is what kept me alive in Helmand Province. My attitude is what trains Marines to serve with honor. If that seems hostile to you, the problem isn't me. Brixton drew his weapon. The Glock cleared the holster and leveled at Washington's chest. The body cam captured the draw, smooth, practiced, the motion of someone who had made this decision before the encounter began. Step out of the vehicle. Now. You're pointing a weapon at a decorated combat veteran. I'm pointing a weapon at someone who won't follow lawful commands. There's nothing lawful about this stop. Nothing lawful about your questions. Nothing lawful about the search you're trying to conduct without probable cause. Out. Now. Washington looked at the weapon. At the officer holding it. At the neighbors still recording from the porch. At the body cam that would document whatever came next. I'm going to step out. Slowly. My hands will be visible at all times. I have no weapons. I am complying under duress with what I believe to be an unlawful order, and I'm stating that clearly for the record. He opened the door. He stepped out with the measured movements of a man who had faced worse than this. His dress blues caught the afternoon light. Every ribbon, every medal, every symbol of sacrifice visible to the camera and the neighbor and anyone who would later watch this footage. He stood beside his own vehicle, hands raised, Bronze Star gleaming on his chest. Hands on the car. Washington complied. What happened next would be watched by millions. Brixton closed the distance in 2 aggressive strides. His hand grabbed Washington's shoulder and slammed him against the BMW. The impact drove Washington's chest into the metal. His metal scraped against the door, the Bronze Star leaving a mark on the paint. Spread your legs. Washington complied. He had been searched before, in combat zones, in tactical situations, by allies and adversaries alike. He knew what compliance looked like. He knew how to survive. I'm a staff sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. I have no weapons. I'm fully complying with your orders. Shut up. Brixton's hands moved across Washington's body. Aggressive. Unnecessary. The pat-down of someone searching for a justification rather than contraband. He found nothing. I just came from a funeral. A Marine's funeral. Is this how you treat veterans? I treat everyone the same. No, you don't. You saw a black man in a nice car and decided that was enough. I said shut up. Brixton turned to the BMW. He opened the driver's door. He began tearing through the interior, console, glove compartment, under the seats. Searching for drugs that didn't exist. Searching for contraband that had never been there. His hand found the folded American flag on the passenger seat. 13 folds. Perfect triangle. The same flag that had covered Corporal James Reeves' casket 3 hours earlier. Brixton picked it up. He examined it briefly. Then he tossed it aside. The flag landed on the ground. In the dirt. On the shoulder of a suburban street in Willow Creek, Virginia. Washington saw it fall. His body went rigid, not from fear, but from something deeper. The rage of a man who had watched brothers die, who had carried that flag in honor, who understood what it represented. That flag was for his mother. His voice cracked. 13 years of discipline. 3 combat deployments. Carrying wounded Marines under fire. Nothing had broken him like watching that flag hit the dirt. Pick it up. Brixton continued searching the vehicle. He didn't respond. I said pick it up. It's evidence. Evidence of what? It's a memorial flag. It was given to me at Arlington National Cemetery 3 hours ago. It belongs to the mother of a Marine who died serving this country. Keisha's voice came through the phone still active in the center console. Crying. Darnell? Baby, what's happening? They threw Jimmy's flag on the ground. Oh my God. Oh my God. The neighbor on the porch had moved closer, still recording. His phone captured what the body cam might miss. The angle of the flag in the dirt, the Marine in dress blues pressed against his car, the officer tearing through the vehicle. Brixton found nothing. No drugs. No weapons. No contraband of any kind. He emerged from the BMW empty-handed. You can go. Pick up the flag first. What? Pick up the flag. It's on the ground. You pick it up. You threw it there. You pick it up. Blue lights appeared at the end of the street. Backup arriving. Washington remained against his vehicle, hands still raised, watching the patrol car approach. The door opened. A man stepped out. Older, white. The bearing of someone who had worn a uniform long before he wore a badge. He saw the dress blues first, then the medals, then the flag on the ground. His face changed. Brixton. The voice carried command. Stand down. The supervisor approached at a jog. His eyes moved across Washington's ribbons, recognizing each one, understanding what they meant. He stopped 3 feet away. He straightened, and he saluted. Staff Sergeant, I am so sorry. The supervisor held his salute. Washington, still pressed against his vehicle, couldn't return it. I served 24 years in the Corps. Sergeant Major Thomas O'Brien. Retired. Then you know what that flag means. O'Brien looked at the folded triangle lying in the dirt. His expression shifted from shock to fury. Brixton, did you do that? Sir, I was conducting a search. Did you throw that flag on the ground? Silence. Answer me. It was on the passenger seat. I moved it. You threw an American flag, a memorial flag, on the ground during a traffic stop? O'Brien walked to where the flag lay. He bent down. He picked it up with both hands, brushing off the dirt with reverence, the respect of someone who had carried flags like this himself. He brought it to Washington. Staff Sergeant, this belongs to you. Washington took the flag. He held it against his chest, the same way he had held it at Arlington, the same way he would hold it when he delivered it to Jimmy's mother. Who was it for? Corporal James Reeves. I trained him. He was killed in Afghanistan. O'Brien closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, they were fixed on Brixton. You just assaulted a decorated combat veteran. You disgraced that uniform. He pointed to Washington's dress blues in this department. You desecrated a memorial flag for a fallen Marine. Sir, he was being hostile. I heard the Bodycam audio. I was monitoring the channel. He was being cooperative. He was being accurate. You were being everything a police officer should never be. O'Brien extended his hand. Your badge. Your weapon. Now. You can't. I can. I am. You're relieved of duty effective immediately, pending investigation. Hand them over. Brixton stood frozen. 16 weeks of wearing a badge, ending on a suburban street while a staff sergeant clutched a memorial flag to his chest. He unclipped his badge. He surrendered his weapon. O'Brien took them without ceremony. Go sit in my vehicle. Do not speak. Do not move. Do not touch anything. Brixton walked away. His patrol car sat behind him. Bodycam footage already uploaded. Evidence already preserved. O'Brien turned back to Washington. Staff Sergeant, I need to document your injuries. I need to preserve this scene. And I need to make phone calls that are going to end that man's career. My wife is on the phone. She heard everything. Good. She's a witness. Washington looked at the flag in his hands, at the dirt still visible on the white fabric. He threw it like it was garbage. I know. That flag covered a Marine's casket this morning. A Marine who gave everything. I know. And he threw it in the dirt. O'Brien placed his hand on Washington's shoulder, the gesture of one veteran to another. We're going to make this right. FBI. Federal charges. Everything by the book. That officer is going to pay for what he did, not just to you, but to Corporal Reeves, to his mother, to everyone who served. Washington's wife was still on the phone, crying. Darnell? Baby? Are you okay? I'm okay. It's over. What happened to the flag? Washington looked at the folded triangle in his hands. The dirt was brushed away. The fabric was intact. I'm bringing it home. Then I'm bringing it to Jimmy's mom. The neighbor approached slowly, phone still recording. I got everything. From my porch. Whatever you need. O'Brien nodded. We're going to need all of it. The Bodycam footage was in FBI hands within 24 hours. The neighbor's phone video provided a second angle, capturing what the chest-mounted camera might have missed, including the moment Brixton threw the flag. Both recordings went viral within days. 80 million views across platforms. The image of a Marine in dress blues pressed against his own vehicle, a memorial flag in the dirt, became the defining visual of veteran discrimination for an entire year. But the footage only told part of the story. The investigation would reveal the rest. Officer Kyle Brixton had applied to the Marine Corps at age 18. He had lasted 3 weeks in boot camp before washing out. Failure to adapt was the official designation. He couldn't handle the discipline. Couldn't handle drill instructors demanding excellence. Couldn't handle being told that his best wasn't good enough. The resentment had calcified over 6 years. It showed in his social media posts, mocking affirmative action soldiers, questioning diversity promotions, suggesting that black service members had achieved rank through politics rather than merit. It showed in his text messages, conversations with friends joking about teaching jarheads their place, comments about Marines thinking they're better than everyone. A message sent 2 weeks before the Washington incident. These military guys in their nice cars act like they own everything. Someone needs to check them. It showed in his stop records. 11 civilian contacts in 16 weeks. All traffic stops. All targeting black drivers in affluent neighborhoods. 0 citations issued. 0 arrests made. Just stops. Demands for registration. Questions about vehicle ownership. The systematic harassment of people who had committed no crime. His father was a retired police officer. Thomas Brixton Sr. had spent 30 years on the force before retiring with full pension. When his son applied to Willow Creek PD despite the red flags, the boot camp washout, the psychological evaluation concerns, the social media presence that should have disqualified any candidate, the elder Brixton made phone calls. Kyle was hired despite documented concerns. Staffing shortages, departmental pressure, a father's influence. The Marine Corps issued an official statement within 72 hours of the incident, condemning the treatment of Staff Sergeant Washington, demanding accountability, making clear that attacks on Marines in uniform were attacks on the institution itself. The FBI's investigation expanded beyond Brixton to examine department hiring practices. How had someone with his background been approved? Who had overridden the concerns? What systems had failed? Federal prosecutors treated the case as a priority. Civil rights violations under color of law, assault on a service member, deprivation of rights, desecration of a memorial flag, a federal offense that carried its own enhanced penalties. The flag became the centerpiece of the prosecution's case. Not just fabric, not just symbolism. A memorial entrusted to a veteran, meant for a grieving mother, thrown in the dirt by an officer who saw it as evidence in a search that had no legal basis. Washington provided testimony over 2 days. He walked through everything: the funeral at Arlington, the drive home, the stop, the search, the moment he saw the flag hit the ground. I've survived ambushes. I've carried wounded Marines under fire. I've been hit by shrapnel and kept fighting. Nothing prepared me for watching that flag land in the dirt. The grand jury returned indictments within 4 weeks. Civil rights violations, assault, deprivation of rights, desecration of a memorial flag. Trial was scheduled in federal court. Eastern District of Virginia, the same district where Washington had served, where he had built his career, where he had earned every ribbon on his chest. The evidence was overwhelming. The outcome was never in doubt. The federal courtroom filled to capacity every day of the trial. Marines in dress uniforms filled one section. Brothers who had served with Washington, recruits he had trained, officers who understood what the case represented. The Bodycam footage was played first. The jury watched Brixton approach the window. They watched him ask how Washington could afford a car like this. They watched him circle the vehicle claiming it doesn't match someone like you. They watched him throw a memorial flag on the ground during a search that found nothing. The audible gasp came when the flag landed in the dirt. Jurors who had remained impassive through the earlier footage visibly reacted, heads shaking, hands covering mouths. The neighbor's phone video provided the second angle. The prosecutor synced both recordings, showing the moment from 2 perspectives simultaneously. This is what Officer Brixton did to a memorial flag, the prosecutor said. Not just any flag. The flag that covered Corporal James Reeves' casket at Arlington National Cemetery. The flag entrusted to Staff Sergeant Washington to deliver to a grieving mother. Marie Reeves took the stand on the 3rd day. Jimmy's mother, the woman who had raised him in Cleveland, watched him become a Marine, received the first flag at his funeral. That flag was supposed to come to me. Her voice broke. Staff Sergeant Washington was bringing it to my home. And that officer threw it in the dirt like it was garbage. She looked at the jury. Watching that video killed my son a second time. The prosecution called character witnesses for Washington. Marines he had trained who credited him with making them warriors. A general who had served with him in Afghanistan and called him the finest NCO I've ever commanded. The 2 Marines whose lives he had saved in Helmand Province. Both testified about the ambush, about Washington carrying them to safety under fire, about the shrapnel wound he sustained while refusing to leave them behind. Washington testified in his dress blues. The same uniform he had worn that afternoon. The same medals that Brixton had scraped against the BMW. I've served this country for 13 years. 3 combat deployments. I've been shot at, blown up, and watched friends die. I never expected to be treated like a criminal in my own country by someone wearing a badge while I was wearing this uniform. He held up the flag, the same one Brixton had thrown, now preserved as evidence. This flag represents everything I've fought for. It represents Corporal Reeves' sacrifice. And Officer Brixton threw it in the dirt because he couldn't imagine that a black man in a nice car might have earned what he had. The defense attempted the standard strategy. Misunderstanding. Good faith. No way to know. The prosecutor's rebuttal was devastating. He couldn't have known. Staff Sergeant Washington was wearing Marine Corps dress blues. His medals were visible through the window. He identified himself as a staff sergeant. He explained he was coming from a funeral. Officer Brixton did not know. He didn't care. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Brixton showed no reaction as the verdicts were read. His father was not in the courtroom. His attorney had advised against it. Sentencing was scheduled for 6 weeks later. Washington remained in the gallery after the verdict. Marines surrounded him, hands on shoulders, murmured words of respect. Semper Fidelis, always faithful. The flag sat in an evidence bag at the prosecutor's table. It would be returned to Washington after sentencing, and he would finally deliver it to Marie Reeves. Sentencing drew national attention. The case had become a symbol, a decorated combat veteran humiliated in his own country by an officer who couldn't handle 3 weeks of boot camp. The judge reviewed the pre-sentencing report with visible contempt. The boot camp washout, the resentment, the social media posts, the pattern of stops targeting black drivers, the father's influence in hiring. Officer Brixton, you couldn't complete Marine Corps training. You couldn't handle the discipline required to serve. And when you encountered someone who had earned everything you couldn't achieve, you decided to humiliate him. She paused. You asked a Bronze Star recipient how he could afford his car. You told him he didn't match his neighborhood. You threw a memorial flag for a fallen Marine in the dirt. You did all of this while wearing a badge you never deserved. The sentence, 9 years federal prison. Enhanced for targeting a service member. Enhanced for flag desecration. Enhanced for the documented pattern of civil rights violations. Brixton was led from the courtroom in handcuffs. His 16-week career had cost him nearly a decade of freedom. His father, Thomas Brixton Sr., faced investigation for corrupt influence in hiring practices. His pension was suspended pending review. His reputation, 30 years of service, collapsed under the weight of what his phone calls had enabled. The police chief resigned before he could be forced out. 3 supervisors who had approved Brixton's application were terminated. The department entered a DOJ consent decree requiring federal oversight for 5 years. The city settled with Washington for $8.2 million within 4 months. He divided the money with purpose. $2 million established the Corporal James Reeves Memorial Scholarship Fund, providing education assistance for children of fallen Marines. The first scholarship would be awarded to Jimmy's nephew. $1 million went to veteran legal defense organizations, ensuring that service members facing discrimination had access to representation. The remaining funds went to his family. College savings for Darnell Jr. security for Keisha. The stability he had always wanted to provide. The neighbor who had recorded from his porch, Gregory Matthews, 63, retired accountant, was honored by the NAACP for his courage in documenting the incident. His video had provided the angle that showed the flag landing in the dirt. I saw a Marine being disrespected, Matthews said. I had to do something. Washington was promoted to gunnery sergeant 6 months after the incident. He continues serving as senior drill instructor at Quantico, training the next generation of Marines with even more determination. He uses his story in training now, tells recruits about dignity, about resilience, about representing the Corps even when the country fails to respect it. He testified before Congress on veteran discrimination, a closed session of the Armed Services Committee that resulted in recommendations for enhanced protections for service members facing police encounters. Kyle Brixton is currently serving his sentence at FCI Petersburg in Virginia. He will be eligible for release in 2033. His applications for appeal have been denied twice. His father has not visited. Darnell Washington still drives the same BMW X6. He still takes shortcuts through Willow Creek sometimes, not to make a point, but because it's the fastest route home. The memorial flag he retrieved from the dirt now hangs in Marie Reeves' living room in Cleveland. Framed, protected, a reminder of her son's sacrifice and the Marine who made sure it reached her despite everything. Washington was recently selected for Sergeant Major Academy, the highest enlisted professional education in the Marine Corps. When he completes it, he will be one step from the top of the enlisted ranks. 3 weeks washed Brixton out of boot camp. 13 years made Washington a legend. The uniform doesn't lie.